I love baking. It's one of my favorite hobbies. So of course I love baking Christmas goodies. Every year, I receive requests from family members to make specific things they like for our family get-togethers. I don't always make everything people ask for, but sometimes I get carried away and go a bit overboard. This year, my husband and I were hosting my family for Christmas Day, so I wanted to do a lot of baking on the days leading up to the gathering. I had Friday off of work, so I got a fair amount done, but not as much as I wanted to because our 3 kids were home from school. And I kept getting distracted. So on Saturday, I asked my husband to take the kids out of the house for a few hours so that I could focus on baking. He didn't want to do that because it was Christmas Eve and it was cold. We had a dangerous wind chill warning. I explained to him that I wouldn't be able to get all the baking done that I wanted to if he and the kids were in the house, so I needed him to take them out to do anything. He reluctantly agreed, and I was able to get everything done that I wanted to. After I finished, I was exhausted and laid on the couch for a few minutes to rest before cleaning up the disaster in the kitchen. Unfortunately, I must have fallen asleep because I was woken up by my husband loudly doing the dishes. I went to the kitchen and told him that I had planned on cleaning up, but I must have fallen asleep. I offered to take over for him, but he said he was almost done, so there was no point. I could tell he wasn't happy, as he was angrily cleaning mixing bowls. He asked if I had finished all my baking, and I told him that I did, and I was really happy with how everything turned out. He simply replied, "Good," without even taking his eyes off of what he was doing. I asked him how the outing with the kids went, and he just said it was fine. I knew something was bothering him, so I asked him what was wrong. He explained that he felt like I had kicked him out of the house so that I could do my hobby on one of the coldest days of the year, and then he came home to a huge mess in the kitchen and me napping on the couch. I apologized and explained that I didn't plan on falling asleep and had every intention of cleaning up after myself, but he didn't seem to care. He told me that he needed to start dinner because the kids were hungry, so he would do that as soon as he finished cleaning up, saying, "You're a huge mess." I apologized again for falling asleep without cleaning and offered to cook dinner so he could relax, but he told me that he just wanted to be left alone for an hour while he cooked. This wasn't the first time he had cleaned up after one of my baking marathons. When he cooks, he cleans as he goes, but I can't multitask like that, so I leave the dishes until I'm done. Sometimes I get distracted with the kids or something else and unintentionally leave a mess in the kitchen. But usually, I can convince him to let me take over for him if he starts cleaning up after me. Am I the idiot? This is about forcing your husband out of the house with zero warning on Christmas Eve and on a day with dangerous weather conditions. This isn't like a summer's day where you can just take them to the park. What is he supposed to do with them? Take them shopping? You are the idiot for kicking your husband and kids out of the house on Christmas Eve. And she says her family requests things, trying to pass this amount of baking off as an obligation. It's not. We're not stupid. You baked this much because you wanted to, and decided your individual leisure activity was worth treating your family poorly on Christmas Eve. And it's also all in preparation for hosting her family for Christmas and making many different things that they want. What's in it for her husband? From OP's story, he doesn't even like the baked goods. If she doesn't change, I think she'll get divorce papers for Christmas next year. Even worse, she's putting her hobby before her kids' safety. The husband was worried about taking the kids out, so the fact that OP didn't care is heartbreaking. If OP couldn't possibly bake with the kids around, then she shouldn't have baked. You're a mom first. In your husband's shoes, I'd feel disrespected and hurt, because you're basically showing him that your husband and kids matter less to you than your hobby does. You need to change, and quickly. Here's some background information on the problem. I, a 25-year-old female, hosted dinner a few weeks ago at my place. Everyone was having fun, and the topic of moving out and charging your adult children rent came up. I'm not American, and if I'm being honest, I didn't even know this was a common thing. I told my friends that in Brazil, this would be looked down upon and that I didn't know a single person who had paid rent to their parents. I have 3 grown sisters who live at home and no one pays a cent. I finished my speech by saying that it's fine if they disagree with me, but I personally would never charge my children rent if I wasn't struggling. My friend Amy, a 27-year-old female, said that someone from a third world country wouldn't understand and that my sister shouldn't freeload. I told her it wasn't like that. My parents love to have them around, and it's common, if not expected, to live with your parents until you get married or find a long-term partner. Amy replied by saying that my culture is backward. I tried not to get offended by her choice of words and said, agree to disagree. Back to the present. I hosted again last night and told my friends that my older sister is engaged. Amy proceeds to ask if she's finally gonna grow up now, or if mommy and daddy will pay rent for her elsewhere. I was sick of her little comments. Not the only thing she said these past weeks, and said that no, my sister is buying her own condo with my brother-in-law. And that maybe she could do the same soon, if her parents didn't charge her $1,000 plus utilities every month. This erupted into a fight, and dinner was cut short. Some of my friends think I should apologize to Amy to keep the peace, but I don't think I should. Am I in the wrong here? She called Brazil a third world country? What an idiot. Screw her for her third world and backward culture comments. Don't entertain bigots. I don't understand how your friends are split about this. Amy was being insulting and rude, and she's the one who owes you an apology. My friends are torn because Amy is very sensitive about housing. She had to go back to her parents after breaking up with her boyfriend, and is ashamed of it. I thought she would feel better knowing that this is very common in a lot of cultures. But what do I know? LOL. Amy has been very rude to me ever since she found out that my parents helped me pay for the down payment on my condo. And I'm growing tired of it. Oh, I'm sure your comment hit too close to home. She's jealous. Amy is ignorant and unaware that not every place in the world is like the soccer mom suburb that she grew up in. At the next party, ask her to point out Brazil on a map. Agree? Calling OP's culture a third world necessity to survive, while implying that they're spoiled for getting help on their first home, and that the sister as a child pretty much gave it away. If she really did mean it, it must be utterly humiliating, knowing that your friend from a poor third world country, with family living at home, still got more financial support to start their adulthood than you did. Screw her. I, 32 male, was recently bestowed an inheritance of close to $50,000 by my late grandfather, 91 male. The reason I received the inheritance, according to the will, is that I was the only person in his life who would make a point of visiting him at his nursing home. His wife and friends were all long deceased, and my parents live in a different country than him. I would visit 1 to 2 times a month to check in on him, play cards, bring him on walks, etc. The main reason for these visits was that my grandfather was always there to listen and talk to me when I was at the lowest point in my life after returning from deployment. We were both combat veterans, so he understood me on a level other people couldn't. Here's where the problem lies. My grandfather held a lot of extreme viewpoints that I disagreed with, specifically against the LGBTQ community. I resented my grandfather for these views, and called him out on it whenever he would say something inappropriate. I was very close to ending the visits because of these views, but decided against it for reasons discussed prior. My sister, 28, is happily married to a woman, 31, and therefore obviously cut off contact with my grandfather. My sister and I had a very good relationship in general, but we would frequently fight over my sister's in-laws. I have a continued relationship with my grandpa. So when he passed away and left me the money, I did not think that there would be an argument over it, as my sister wanted nothing to do with him. Understandably so. However, when she found out about it, she demanded that she should receive half of the money. I was shocked, and basically told her no way, as she wasn't the one who was visiting and providing care for him for the last 5 years. My sister was visibly angry, and we have not been on speaking terms since. This has left me wondering whether I am the one at fault, as my sister was a victim of my grandfather's bigotry. However, I do not think that half of the money is a reasonable request. Am I in the wrong? Not at all. This is a tale as old as time. There is no family bond stronger than the desire for inheritance. My sister chose to cut off all contact with our grandfather, justified by his views. And when you cut off contact, it means you want nothing to do with that person. It's as simple as that. You cannot expect to receive their money after they pass away. She made the decision to have nothing to do with our grandfather, and that is what she will receive. Nothing. In this situation, everyone is at fault. On one hand, it was our grandfather's decision, and we should respect it. On the other hand, if we support his decision to cut off our sister, we are also supporting the same bigotry that drove her away. Self-respect tells us that this is not acceptable, as you have said. Honestly, I would consider sharing at least a fifth or a quarter of the money with her. If you share nothing, you may lose your relationship with your sister. Is that a consequence you are willing to accept? Yes, you may be in the wrong. Our grandfather was wrong to expect the younger generation to cater to him, while he insulted and disrespected our sister. You were the favored grandchild, and now you are reaping the benefits, because she was the target, not because of your own actions. You cannot control our grandfather's views any more than you can change the type of person he was. But keeping the inheritance will always make it seem like you supported his terrible views, especially when it was beneficial to you. Our sister is the one who cut off all ties. Why does she think she deserves half of the money? If you give her half, she may want more. Will she suddenly love or appreciate our grandfather? No, she just wants easy money. You are not responsible for our grandfather's beliefs, nor are you obligated to compensate anyone on his behalf. Please stop trying to push this nonsense. I, a 26-year-old female, have been married for 4 years. I have always dreamed of having a big family with lots of children. My husband and I are currently trying to have children. My 23-year-old sister, on the other hand, is adamantly against having children. She has made it clear to our parents that she never wants to have children and is even considering getting sterilized. Whenever the topic of having children comes up, it always leads to arguments between us. It always becomes a sort of debate. I mentioned how having children can be a good and great thing, and to retaliate, she always brings up the negatives about having children, constantly saying it's horrible and tiring and why it just won't be good for her. She also mentions how our parents regretted it, almost as if she's expecting me to do the same. Finally, it turns into a fight, and we stop speaking for a few days. However, now I'm starting to have doubts because of her. What if she's right, and I regret having children? After another fight, I mentioned this to her, and she got mad at me and told me it was not her fault. I couldn't think for myself, which isn't true. She called me a witch and told me to stop bringing the topic up if I don't like what she said. Now I feel bad that I blamed her for my worry and insecurity, even though she kept saying negative things despite knowing I wanted children. So am I the idiot? I kind of blamed my younger child-free sister for making me doubt wanting to have children. You are the idiot. You can want to have children, and she cannot want to have children. You can both explain your reasons, but if you change your mind, that's on you. It's not her fault that you're second-guessing your stance. She made her own life decisions, and you're responsible for yours. OP, it sounds like you bring up the topic of having kids intentionally to create drama. You 100% know it will lead to a debate every time. So why push the issue? Your sister is allowed to not want children, and she's not obligated to paint a rosy picture of child rearing just so you feel comfortable with your life decisions. To be honest, it seems like OP plans to blame her sister either way. If she doesn't have kids and regrets the decision, it's her sister's fault for not being supportive enough, putting down having children, and convincing her that kids are a burden, etc. On the other hand, if she does have kids and regrets that choice, my money is on OP, blaming her sister for not stepping in or saying enough to convince her not to have children. Woe is me. Everything is everyone else's fault. If at 26, you're blaming someone for making you doubt if you want kids, then you're too immature to have them. So stop trying and grow up. And she's right. Stop bringing up the topic. You already know her stance. This is something to discuss with your husband, not your younger sister. My husband's daughter, 21, moved in with us after she turned 18 because she hated her mom's boyfriend. I actually had a friend renting a room at the time, which I asked to move out so she could have it. I even didn't charge him for the last month to help him find a place. It has honestly sucked. She was entitled, lazy, and refused to clean up after herself. She would complain about dinner, get up and go back to her room, leave her plate at the table, clean her room, and leave a sink load of moldy dishes. Never once helped me clean any common areas, pay no rent. One time I woke up to her gone, and the guy she had been dating for 3 months was watching TV in my living room while she was at work. I could go on for days. She would only help if something turned into a fight either with her or I and her dad. 5 weeks ago, we got into it again, and she packed her stuff and left. Found out later that she moved in with her 40-year-old male co-worker. Now she and her co-worker are not getting along. It honestly sounds like similar problems and she wants to come back. I'll be honest, I already cleaned out her room and made it into a game room / office, workout room. Life has been 1,000 times better with her, not here. She comes over and visits regularly. That started not long after she left. She got nicer and told us how mean her roommate was. This guy has a married couple and a child living with him too. And her dad still takes her out for dinner and things like that. So it's not a no-contact situation. Her mom is currently couch surfing, so she can't move back in with her. I don't want her to move back in here. My husband wants to let her come back, but to give her a timeline to find another place. I don't want to. Because number 1, I'm enjoying the peace and having our own space. 2, I don't trust her to stick to an agreement. 3, she has bad-mouthed a ton of people, and she and her friends call me a stepmonster, so I'm not inclined to help her. Edit. To be clear, she's safe where she is. She's just not getting along with them, unhappy and broke. The house we currently live in was mine pre-marriage, and was part of a prenuptial agreement. Of course I consider his feelings, but at the end of the day, it is my call, not the idiot. This girl sounds like a nightmare. She's 21, time to grow up. She didn't run away, she chose to leave because it was easier at the time than respecting you or your property. It would be naive to think it will magically be different next time, just because she's desperate. Obviously your husband gets a say in this too, but your concerns are valid. She has a job, she can feed herself and find another shared housing situation. If you and your husband agree, you could pay a set monthly amount toward one of your stepdaughter's bills. For instance, pay $100 a month to her landlord to help her with her rent cost. Disagree. But family, people who think family can do whatever and still be invited back, are doormats. The woman you described is not recognizing the sacrifice it takes to let someone else into your home. Instead, she feels entitled to it. She's not going to change or learn by being let back in. It's a terrible shame, and I wish her growth in her life. I wish for her to experience growth in her life. But that growth won't happen if she doesn't face consequences for her actions. She has a lot of work to do before she can earn the opportunity to live under your roof again or receive your help.